Somebody's race and ethnicity can be a touchy subject sometimes, especially when you're ignorant about it. As you can see, I'm not white. Therefore, the game of let me rudely ask what your race is part of my everyday life. So here's a few that I often receive. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Hello? Don't you speak Spanish? No. Aren't you Mexican? No. People often come up to me and will talk to me in a different language, assuming that I know that language just because I have dark skin, dark hair, which is quite rude actually, because no, I don't speak a different language. I only speak English. Another one I get often is people are like, oh, you have dark skin and long hair, you must be Native American, huh? No, I'm not Native American, but thanks. And then the last one, another one that I receive quite often is like, oh, you're Asian, you must be like good at math or like make good sushi and stuff like that. I'm like, no, can't, I'm terrible at both actually. So being ethnically ambiguous can have its perks in being considered unique. However, being approached with these, honestly quite rude assumptions about my race and ethnicity is honestly, it's frustrating because it's not only blunt, but they're also like, they're wrong. So it's kind of ignorant of them. And it's not just the part of them getting wrong, it's the part of them assuming and not properly asking me what my ethnicity is. I mean, we all have heard the question, where are you from? And this question can refer to like what state you're in, what city you're in, but then there's the follow-up question, but where are you really from? And it's a question that upsets many people, especially me, because I'm half white, half Filipino, but I grew up in Washington. I've traveled to a few places, but honestly, I've never been to the Philippines. Washington is my home, and that's where my parents grew up too. But since I'm not considered white, I must be really from somewhere else, right? So why do I get this question all the time, and why is that? To be honest, it's rude and just ignorant on the person asking me. So I came up with like a list of what not to say when you're asking about someone's ethnicity. The first part being again, where are you really from? Because that kind of implies that, one, that they don't belong here, and two, that they must belong from somewhere else. Since they look different from you, they must be from somewhere else, right? They can't possibly have grown up in the same place as you. And the second one is the guessing game, the one I was talking about, what many people try to do with me. The guessing game is the best way to make someone feel like a trivialized object for your viewing pleasure. And while you might think it's like a joke or it's funny or something, honestly, it just gets quite annoying after a while, when people often try to guess what your race or ethnicity is, and they always get it wrong. And then they're like, oh, but you must be this. It's like, no, I'm not. And then the third one is, what are you? Like, what are you asking? What am I? I mean, I'm kind of hungry, I'm kind of tired, that's what I am. Like, what are you is like so blunt and like kind of straightforward, but like in a really rude way. So instead of asking that question, oh no, but where are you really from? Like, you can take it with a different approach. So some alternatives to to asking about one's culture, their race, or their ethnicity can be like, don't ask them, let them bring it up, if they please. Like, if they really want to talk about it, they'll bring it up. Oftentimes, people do want to talk about their background and where they come from, and just let them bring it up. Don't be so pushy, or don't assume, because it's again, really just frustrating. And then another way to ask somebody, but politely, is to simply ask, like, what's your ethnicity, instead of like, where are you really from, or what are you? Like, those are just kind of rude. So being curious is okay. Like, it's okay to be curious and to ask people and to want to get to know somebody and their story and their background. So just asking in a politer way, with like, what is your ethnicity? We should embrace diversity, so this is okay to ask. However, asking somebody bluntly and like straightforward is not the appropriate time. I feel like the appropriate time when you can ask somebody about where they're really from is if it's in a conversation and it naturally comes up with a friend or an acquaintance or somebody that's not a complete stranger. Because again, this whole where are you really from thing is getting really tired, because I'm really from Washington, believe it or not. You know, I might have dark skin and the dark hair, but I'm a Washington girl, and that's what I consider myself to be. Don't consider myself to be anything from anywhere else. So I just feel like people need to be taking this into consideration. Lately, not lately, I'm sure like all the time, people just feel like they have the right to ask people questions without properly thinking through it, and like, oh, how might this affect them, or how might they feel about this, and is this the polite way to ask somebody something? So I just want people to basically take a step back and think about how this might affect somebody, and basically go about the right way to ask somebody about their ethnicity, their culture, because culture is something that should be celebrated and talked about, but in an appropriate setting. So yeah, thanks.